the man who started noticing everything. Ethan never thought of himself as someone particularly observant. He lived the way most people do, moving from one day to the next, making decisions, having conversations, reacting to situations without questioning them too deeply. Life felt straightforward enough. If something made sense, he accepted it. If something didn't, he ignored it. But one evening, something small happened that he couldn't quite explain. He was sitting in a quiet cafe watching two people at the table across from him. They were talking, nothing unusual about that, but something felt off. One of them was smiling, nodding, saying all the right words. And yet the other person seemed uncomfortable. Ethan couldn't explain why. There was no argument, no raised voices, no obvious tension. But something beneath the surface didn't match what was being said. That was the first time he noticed it. The gap. Over the next few days, Ethan started paying more attention. At work, he noticed how people explained their decisions with confidence, even when those decisions didn't seem fully thought through. It was as if the explanation came after the action, not before it. One colleague insisted he had chosen a project because it was strategically important, but Ethan remembered the hesitation, the uncertainty in his voice just moments earlier. It didn't match. And once Ethan saw it, he couldn't unsee it. One night, lying in bed, Ethan replayed a conversation he had earlier that day. At first it felt normal, just another interaction. But as he examined it more closely, he realized something strange. He had reacted emotionally before he even understood why. Someone had made a simple comment and immediately he felt defensive. Only afterward did his mind begin constructing reasons. They were being disrespectful. They shouldn't have said that. But the feeling had come first. The explanation came later. That realization stayed with him. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan began to notice patterns everywhere. People believed they were in control of their thoughts. But often their thoughts seemed to be reactions, not choices. In meetings, he saw how quickly people formed opinions, how rarely they questioned those opinions, and how confidently they defended them. It wasn't that they were trying to be wrong. It was that their minds had already decided. One afternoon, Ethan sat in a park, watching people pass by. A man walked quickly, checking his phone, his expression tense. A few minutes later, a woman sat down nearby, smiling softly as she read a book. Same environment, same moment in time. Completely different experiences. Ethan realized something then. People don't just see the world. They interpret it. And those interpretations are shaped by something invisible, something internal. Patterns. He started thinking about his own patterns. Why did certain situations make him anxious? Why did some people make him feel comfortable instantly, while others made him uneasy for no clear reason? At first he assumed it was random. But the more he paid attention, the more he saw connections. Past experiences. Memories. Associations he hadn't consciously noticed. His mind had been quietly building a system of predictions, deciding what to expect before anything even happened. One evening, Ethan met his friend Daniel for dinner. Daniel was frustrated. "I don't understand people," he said. "They say one thing and do another." Ethan paused. A few weeks ago, he would have agreed without thinking. But now something felt different. "Maybe they're not aware of it," Ethan said. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan thought carefully before answering. "Maybe they think they're being consistent, but their mind is making decisions in ways they don't fully see." Daniel shook his head. "That sounds complicated." Ethan smiled slightly. "It is." As time passed, Ethan noticed something else. The more aware he became of these patterns, the less automatic his own reactions felt. Not completely, but enough to notice a difference. When something irritated him, there was now a brief pause. A small space. In that space, he could observe the reaction instead of immediately acting on it. It didn't always change what he did, but it changed how he understood it. One night, Ethan found himself overthinking again. Replaying a conversation, analyzing every detail. Normally, this would frustrate him. But this time, he looked at it differently. His mind wasn't trying to cause stress. It was trying to understand. Trying to build a clearer picture of what had happened. The same process that could create anxiety was also the process that allowed learning. That thought calmed him. Weeks later, Ethan attended a small gathering. People were talking, laughing, sharing ideas. At one point, a discussion turned into a disagreement. Nothing serious, but the tone shifted. One person became defensive, another grew quiet. Ethan watched closely. He noticed how quickly the conversation stopped being about the topic. It became about identity. About being right, about being understood. And in that moment, Ethan saw something clearly. People don't just defend ideas. They defend themselves. Walking home that night, the city quiet around him, Ethan felt something he hadn't expected. Not confusion. Not frustration. But curiosity. The kind that doesn't demand immediate answers. The kind that simply observes. He realized that understanding the mind wasn't about solving it. It wasn't about finding one explanation that fits everything. It was about noticing. Noticing the gap between thought and action. Noticing the patterns behind behavior. Noticing the silent processes shaping every decision. And perhaps most importantly, noticing his own. From that day on, Ethan didn't try to control every thought or reaction. He didn't expect himself to be perfectly logical or perfectly aware. Instead, he did something simpler. He paid attention to the small moments, the subtle reactions, the quiet patterns most people overlook. Because once you start noticing how people think, the world doesn't look the same anymore. And neither do you.